Yeah, welcome to the Fat Cats Rugby podcast. Another week, another opportunity to have candid rugby conversations. As usual, Ruben Kihumuro is my name, and I'm here with my usual partner in crime, Dungu Joseph, the very, very popular Dungu Joseph. The week has been very interesting for him, a lot of shout-outs for him, a lot of stories from him as Nomo. And we have a very particularly interesting week. But Dungu, how have you been?
Ruben, I want to thank God. God has been very gracious to me. I believe good things come to those who wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a very happy man, and yeah, I appreciate God.
Do you care to elaborate on what good things these are? What are we celebrating?
I mean, I received flowers for my first time in my life.
Wow.
I didn't know how to behave. Shout outs to the person who delivered and
You're
who
not
sent
going
the
to
flowers.
say their name. You're going to be like our Kampala women who just take pictures of the food and not the sponsor.
Shall we go ahead and introduce our guests? Guys, my name is Joseph Dungu, and I'm happy to be here. Like you can tell, we have faces that are common but uncommon. And these are people that have never been here on the Fat Cats podcast. Starting with the gentleman on my left is a seasoned teacher, rugby mentor, and father, above all. He's a high-standing member of society, a respectable citizen at that, who's fathered not one, not two, but thousands and hundreds of rugby players, and the most passionate rugby mentor I know. To me, he is the person who introduced me to club rugby and also took me for my first ever rugby game at Legends. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
What's your name? And
My name is Valence Bizimana.
yeah,
As you say, the teacher, seasoned teacher.
yes,
Long time teacher
yes.
in my evening years to retire.
Wow.
I still have about
we'll just request
about
Mr.
10 years
Bizimana
to
to just get a little bit closer to his mic. Just pull the chair a bit closer. Pull the chair a bit closer. Yeah. So that we can really
And
hear
you speak into the microphone,
properly. Maybe just to add on to that, if I'm not mistaken, it's 18 years or 16 to 18 years at Namilyango College, the great college of Namilyango.
You will realize that I was first at Namilyango
Yes.
for my school practice. When I first did a diploma,
Okay.
that was way back in 1992, 93. And that is when I actually started falling with the game, when I found it was the game being played. And then when I went back for my Bachelor of Education, I came back to Namilyango in 1998. So actually it is more than 16 years. From 1998 to 2015, those were 16 years. But before that, at diploma, if you add there some 2 years, because I would do school practice, after that, they retained me. So I can say actually I've been in Namilyango for close to 20 years until I was transferred to Nabisunsa.
Yeah, now at Nabisunsa, but you have particularly also held the position of, is it head of Uganda Schools Rugby Association?
Chairman, Uganda
school
Schools
chairman.
Rugby Association.
Okay, that's interesting. And our other guest is he's normally known by his peers as a rugby encyclopedia, and a man also even beyond rugby that is knowledgeable about a couple of things. He has recently had a master's in public health. So,
Public policy and planning.
okay,
Public health is for him.
public health is his.
Yeah.
Guys, let's not dilute the conversation. Like Ruben is saying, we have a guest who is appearing and for the first time, and he is one who has a lot of knowledge about the sport right from its grassroots and has as much information that dates back from when he got introduced to the sport. We'll let him introduce himself and tell us what he does.
Thank you for having me. Maybe before I introduce myself, it's good to be here with Monsieur Valence.
Can you guys speak some French so that we know that you're French speakers? Speak directly into the microphone.
I'm with some of his former students, and
I taught this guy.
all the French they speak is basically one guy says, Je ne comprends pas, the other one responds, Je suis malade.
Yes.
Basically, one guy is saying, I don't understand, then the other one is like, I am sick. So, I'll mention the names after, I won't mention them here. But Monsieur Valence taught my big brothers. There was Jonona Isabirye. I think that was the cohort of 98 to 2003. Then there was Joshua Wakabi Isabirye. That's the cohort of 2002 to 2007. Then me, 2005 to 2010. And of the three, I'm the only one who did French at O level or for UCE. So it's good to be here with him.
Pleasure.
My name is Joseph Isabirye. Most people call me Isabirye. I was in Miliango 6 years. In rugby circles, let's just say I do some work for COBS in terms of archiving and so on.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, we shall get into that, yes.
And an avid follower of the
The
podcast.
avid follower of the podcast. I've liked what Ruben has done. Ruben actually understands rugby media. I think I pointed it out to Edwin. I don't know if he passed on the compliment.
Edwin never passes that stuff on. He keeps them for himself.
Selfish chap. Yeah, but I like what you've done with the podcast and how you're into analytics. Because the first time he told me, he gave me feedback. He's like, Gwe, do you know that this and this and this is happening on the podcast? Ruben showed me some statistics. I'm like, Edwin, you didn't know that. But in my I'm like, you have the right guy on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to be here.
Yeah. Very, very interesting conversation today. A lot happening this weekend. But particularly our focus for this one will be about schools rugby.
Yeah.
Understanding schools rugby, understanding where schools rugby is going and what to expect particularly for this upcoming season that's coming up. Before we really dig into it and ask the gentlemen, the guests that we have with us here, Joseph Dungu, because we have two Josephs here today, I have to be very clear. What is one of your most vivid memories of high school rugby from your time at Namiliango? Maybe before even you get into that, just to clear this out, we are predominantly Namiliango here, but we are going to speak about rugby in general. And we do promise to have a particularly SMAC and maybe Budo focused podcast in the future. But for now, let the Ngonians rule. But we're going to talk about schools rugby in general, not just Namiliango College.
Yeah.
But share with us your memories about schools rugby.
Yeah. My biggest memory will always come in 2012.
Okay.
I remember I was in S1 and S1 West. So Saturdays were always, Sundays I remember, were the days for rugby, schools rugby. And would initially play the group stages at the various schools, and the quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals would always be played at a neutral ground, preferably Chadondo All Legends. So this morning, so I was quite that popular guy in S1. I was quite friendly, and that's always been me. I try to always make friends quickly. So I remember when I was in S1, Kishato was in S6, and he was the anchors captain, and Mr. Bizimana was the rugby patron. So Mr. Bizimana was, I must say, a fatherly figure, and has always been and will always be. He loved everyone so much, but his best friend was always the captain, because he knew the captain was always his touch point. So I wanted to go for the semi-finals, because semi-finals are always the most heated games. I mean, you get to watch about 2 games from each category. Under 15, 4 games actually.
Three games.
3 games.
Right now, I think it's under 15.
Semi-finals,
under 17,
there are
and
more
under
than
19.
3.
Semi-finals, there are 4 games.
6.
6 games, yeah. You get to watch many games, 6 games.
Yeah.
Because they will have to select the guys going to the finals. So I missed out on a slot. I remember those days they would auction slots. So they tell you S1s have 15 seats on the bus, the fans bus. S2s have 20, 25. Because the bus can take up to 63 people, 66. And A-levels are not coming 30 on the bus, you know. They have to be more. So I missed out on this slot for the semi-finals. So I spoke to Kishato when they came back. In Namiliango, speaking to the A-levels was quite crazy. You do not get to mix levels. I mean, you're an S1 and you're speaking to an S6. was quite a dream, and Kishato was special. So I speak to Kishato, tell him, please, I know we have qualified. I actually met him after assembly, ran to him, told him, please, I know you guys have qualified for the finals. This Saturday, please take me to Legends. So he's like, you'll have to pay. I'm like, cool. Can I pay today? He's like, no, we don't get money on Monday.
Can disappear
So,
between the course of
so
the
I
week.
remember I was Mr. Bizimana taught me French in S1, but Mr. Bizimana always taught us to respect time. Time for class is class. Time for rugby is rugby, and give your best shot at it. So I spoke to Mr. Biz, tried to tell him, Mr. Bizimana, please take me for. He's like, no, you have to speak to the captain. So, but I'd already set up my grassroots somehow. So, here is the memory. I remember that morning, after having breakfast, Kishato told me, you are coming with us to Legends. And I couldn't be prouder. I mean, I walked back to the industrials, got my education for responsibility shirt, the white shirt, stepped to the bus, and off what to Legends. 2012 was, I think, my first time at Legends to watch schools rugby. And I remember Magomo was in Namilianga at the time. Kishato was in S6. Yeah, Magomo was in S5. And Magomo was the fly half. Magomo was special. He could make things happen. So I remember that game went toe-to-toe and we managed to beat Smack convincingly. And while we celebrated the win, I was seated in the stands where the flags usually are. If you're walking from the dressing room, just straight to the end. And I jumped from the stands and I was celebrating. My mouth was wide open and they took a photo of me. Mr. Bizimana still has the newspaper. And so when we went back to school,
Have it.
there was this newspaper called Scoop. Scoop.
Yeah.
So I remember it was a Monday, Tuesday, around there, Wednesday. I think it was actually a following Saturday. Scoop was coming out the following Saturday. So we're having morning prep, around mid-morning prep, 9 a.m. to midday. S1 West. Mr. Bizimana comes to class, knocks on our door, enters. He's like, I'm looking for a boy called Joseph Dungu. I'm like, my lord, what have I done? Meanwhile, I was quite naughty for noise making. So
I'm not
he calls me,
about that, though.
takes me to his house, pulls out a newspaper. He's like, who is this? And it was me. I was like, oh my God. And there was a caption, I think the mess prefect should give this kid some more food. So that's my biggest rugby memory. And I want to thank Mr. Bizimana for taking me for my first ever rugby game at Legends. And from that day, I never looked back. Because I remember even on reporting days, after holidays, he would ask you, you've reported with your parent and you're checking in. He's like, I didn't see you at Legends. Where were you the entire holiday? You didn't watch Cobb's games. So that's how my love for Cobbs started. And he will tell you about how I almost crossed to a certain club.
You just survived me. It was going to be horrible.
Yeah.
One thing about Mr. Bizimana, in college, he is very, very serious about everyone supporting Cobs. I remember there is someone in our class at the time who had gotten a Pirates jersey from somewhere, and he would flaunt around with it. It was a legit G4. That time Pirates was sponsored by G4S with the white and the red patches, and you'd walk around the compound. He was proudly wearing his jersey. Then sometimes we'd play touch in it until one day he met Mr. Bizimana, and Mr. Bizimana took it from him. He's like, "You'll get it at the end of the term."
Oh, I told him we are going to burn it in your presence.
But you see,
The boy had just come from Smack, I think. He had come from Smack, either Smack or Budo. I don't remember him very well. But it was like sacrilege to wear a Pirates jersey at college. It is eternally known that we belong to Cobbs as college. I was just being loyal to the club where the school subscribes.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So, but before we get into the details, I'm going to start with you, Joseph. This time, Joseph Isabirye. How did you first of all fall in love with rugby in general, and perhaps how did you get involved into any part of your contribution with high school rugby?
So, like I mentioned, I'm the third child of my father to go to Namibia. Now, in the living room at home, there is a photo a photo of the rugby team. I think it was the team of Edmond to Musime.
With your brother.
Hey, my brother was there. Now, to me, there was just faces. I could only notice my brother's face. But when I got to Namilyango in S1, that was 2005, I could see some of these faces that I had seen in this photo. I remember Collins Mubangizi. Walakira was there because Walakira was in Form 2 and my brother was in Form 6. So I was actually curious how this guy made a team when he was in Form 2. So in a way, it also implied meritocracy at Namilyango. And I think those were days without a coach. But Ernest can make a team. And you could find that that's a key difference between Namilyango and some other schools. So the first game, those days orientation was a full week. You don't go to class. You're just playing games around there. Now, of course, everyone fears rugby. But I think it was that very weekend, our first week, we came to play. And you normally see these guys, the way they structure it is that the team converges behind the pyramid, Mugera Hall.
Yes.
And then they handle, then they slope down, they jog onto the pitch. So you're a small boy, you're seeing all these big guys jogging onto the pitch. You've not seen them, and after that game, you're not going to see them again, like until maybe another week, or you're going to be on your first assembly and you're going to see Joel Anguyo. Joel Anguyo, is it back at Pirates now?
No, he's not, but
He's not, yeah.
he was
Hey.
there when they won, I think, recently,
he-
2017.
I watched
He
him.
was, he was
2018.
he was the captain when I was in Form 1. And back in the holiday, like my brother normally would narrate and be like, we are very good at rugby. We never lose to SMAC. Actually, he used to tell me we've never lost to SMAC at all. But when you check the records, there's evidence of some losses.
Yes.
So those minor details actually help build the psyche of Namilyango. And you're there. Ernesto comes to you like Keno's friends, that Chiwalavia's class.
Yes.
They can come to you and they tell you, by the here we don't lose to SMART. But you're a new guy. You don't know these things. And then they are planting all these ideas in you. They're planting all these ideas in you. So that very first game against Muiri, I think we scored about 62-0. So you're here supporting your school. It's basically try after try, try after try, try after try. Then when you're next to these elder guys, they're normally pointing out, hey, that's the new guy from Bodo. I think that was like Katso.
But who were you supporting when college played in Miri? Because this was a home team, and then you were playing in college, your school. Which one were you rooting for?
No, Muiri is not my school.
Say home.
It's a
Why are they
village
thinking
school.
Muiri is
Your
your
village school.
Muiri is a walking distance from our place. Not walking exactly, but roughly 10 kilometers. In lockdown, I would walk those distances. And 3 of my brothers went there. So that's why it's not my school. Actually, guys would point out every Mosoga, they're like, don't support Muiri. Every Mosoga, they remind you that. So it was quite interesting. And I think the week after that, more guys took up rugby. Of course, people like Edwin, by the time they got there, they knew a thing or two about rugby beforehand. So to me, I think I'd watched it on TV, but that was like the first live experience, and it was quite amazing.
Okay, that's great. Mr. Bizimana, just to rope you in now, we have talked about you sharing, and that's how it's been quite 20 years or so of being at Namilyango. Maybe you could just give us a brief background of how, from a teacher that was there on student teacher duty, to the point when you became a teacher, and how you got into ideally being one of the most, if not the most respected rugby patron of the school, and going on to really becoming the chairman of the Uganda Schools Rugby Association. So how did that journey start?
Oh, thank you. Naturally, I'm a sportsman. Naturally, I love sports. So when I rejoined Namilyango in 1998, remember I told you I had been there in 1993. Then there was Mr. Kakembo who was in charge in those days in 1993. But somehow, because me, I love the sports, I would accompany him without even having any role to play. I would just go and watch. This was a new game to me. I never played rugby, but I used to love soccer. I used to love chess. I used to love all indoor games. I used to love even volleyball, among these other big outdoor sports. So at times we would go to play like in Kaboja. There is a circuit. We go with Mr. Kakembo, the patron of rugby. And that time he was patron and at the same time games master. Would reach there. For him, he has scripts to mark. He just goes to the bus, marks the games they are going on. I'm there watching. Then at the end, in the evening, he comes and asks me, how did the games go? Have we won? So I would be the one to make a report. So on Monday in the staff meetings, I have already fed him with what to report. He reports as if he was really watching. He had watched all the games. Now, later on, Galauzi was a rugby player. They happened to be the head teacher's son. Somehow, the father got interested in knowing what was taking place. I think it must be Andrew Galauzi who told the dad that actually Kakembo was not watching rugby. Whatever happens on the pitch, he doesn't know. So I benefited from that situation. They said, the most loving sports person in this school is Mr. Bizimana. Although I had never played rugby, they said the most popular sport here is rugby. Since you love sports most, you can take over. Of course, it was not good for my friend. He might have thought maybe he campaigned for this post, but it is the students who went and told. So that's when I got in touch. To be precise, I was appointed patron rugby in 2005. Now, towards the end of 2004, Namilyango had never had a coach before. And teams had started beating us. Actually, from 2000, we had not won a league game. We had not won a league trophy. So it's because schools like Budo had started hiring people like Sama Hamya. The schools, the Central schools had coaches, mainly Kenyan players and some coaches. We had schools like Inti. All those schools had, and they would beat us, especially when it came to sevens. So I said, my role now is also to change this way of playing. Namilyango had talent, raw talent. You would see the Rabokes, he comes and he hits you, they give him a red card, and then they start fighting the referee because they didn't know the rules. They just said, no, why, what have I done? Because for them, hitting someone over where they would say, that's rugby. So somehow I told the headmaster, we also need a coach. So we went straight away for Fredo. Because we were attached corps, it was easier to get Fredo, and at that moment he was readily available. And I can tell you straight away, we sent warning to the rest of the schools. We won the league with the likes of Anguyo. Anguyo was the captain in 2005. Just less than 5 months, I had already won a trophy. Schools league. We reclaimed our lost glory. So we went on, won the trophy 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. Then something happened. 2009, Cobb's players, Fredo, Wadia, Ogwete, they were banned. And they were not supposed to get involved in any kind of rugby activities. So that's how Namilyango got affected, because Fredo could not come to coach Namilyango. And therefore, somehow it was hard because he didn't have an assistant. So somehow in the semi-finals, Maka managed to beat us with a 6-3 penalty.
6-3,
I remember
that
6-3.
semi-final.
And they went on to win the league, their first league ever. So generally, that is how I got into rugby. For now, after that, I can tell we started winning everything. And the most recent, if you have known, last year, Namilyango became the East African champions. So we have never looked back.
Yeah, I think that's great. While we're still on that topic, one of the biggest challenges we have in this country, especially with this particular sport, and I think it's also a general issue, is record keeping, and especially on also club level, but even school level. And many of the people that come up don't understand the background, the heritage, and the foundation of what's happening. So I would like to ask, maybe if you could share with us the background of schools rugby. How did it get formed? How did it start? Yeah.
And also the lens, how you've seen schools rugby transition over the years. You talk of the 2000s when some schools had coaches, others had Kenyan players, and going into these years now, how have you seen it? What's the spectrum?
Thank you. To be a bit more historical, I remember Namilyango was the only rugby playing school until 1997 when the league officially started. The schools league started in 1997. Before that, of course, schools like Budo, schools like SMAC, schools like Kabalega, schools like Buketi, something in the east. They had played some bit of rugby, and it was only Namilyango, which at that time was playing as a club itself. It was a school, but because it did not have competitors, it subscribed to play in the club's league. So up to 1997, when other schools had now streamlined, the league started officially for schools. So there has been a lot of rugby has evolved since then. As I have said, the players have now coaches. They easily learn the laws. You can just find a player also teaching fellow players the laws because they read. Those days it was hard. They go to internet, read. Any offense you committed, the coach will tell them, go and read on that. You will know what you did. Of course, those days also, the schools were not putting in any money. The players were always sponsoring themselves. A player gets injured, the parents are the ones to meet all the costs. But these days, some schools have started even insuring their players. The OBs of Namilyango College, for instance, have insured the players.
That's a huge step.
Yeah. It has, you can see about 2-3 years ago, we have also introduced ambulance. Those days we would say the requirement should be the host team should provide a school nurse and an evacuation vehicle in case of a serious injury.
Yes.
These days, it's a requirement to have an ambulance at any host school where rugby is taking place. No ambulance, no rugby. Whether it is 7s or 15s, there has to be an ambulance.
Yes.
So there are quite many. We
Then
have
also
kept data. I was talking about data. We have, over the years, since, by the way, I let it be on record, I'm the person who introduced age grade.
Yeah. That's
Rugby.
what I was hinting on almost.
We have now under 15. Okay, my predecessor, Mr. Mutebi, because I served in his regime as treasurer. I was a treasurer during his regime. We had under 14 and the under 16. But we saw in senior one, the people were not playing rugby, so we said, in senior two, many schools have people who are 15 years and above. So we wanted to be real, and we said, let it change from under 14 to under 15. Because senior ones were not playing, but rugby would start being played at school in senior two when students would be 15 years. Then the category of under 16, we changed to under 17. We are playing at one time under 18, we made it under 19. Now we have also moved with rugby standards, it is now under 20.
Yeah, internationally.
Internationally, it is now under 20.
Okay.
Yeah, those are some of the changes that have come up.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting to have or to know. But before we actually even get further in what we're trying to speak about today, you should know that we're at the Fred and Winnie B&B, and it's 2023. It's a time for you to take some time for yourself and maybe have a getaway. Or if you have any people coming into the country, any people coming from up country, and they really, really want to get a place to stay, the Fred and Winnie B&B is the place to be. 10 self-contained private bedrooms consisting of 2 deluxe doubles, 3 standard doubles and 1 deluxe twin, and 2 standard twin bedrooms, a fully equipped kitchen, power backup system, Wi-Fi, laundry, a chef to cater to you every meal, sumptuous buffet, breakfast with a choice of selected tropical fruits and juice. To be able to get in touch with us and book, call the number 0778 933 559. The number will also be shown on the bottom of the screen where you can be able to get more information, but make sure that you get in touch with the Fred and Winnie B&B. We know that Valentine's is done, but that does not mean that a staycation or a getaway should stop until the next Valentine's. So,
Ruben, let's ask these guys to tell us the experience, because we took them around the place.
They had a visit of
so,
the
Isabirye, tell us what you saw and how you liked the place.
Well, the proprietor knows I've visited Fred and Winnie a few times before it became Fred and Winnie.
Yeah.
But I've actually liked that change. I think the hostel chairman at Minrop should get such a room. I'm willing to contribute a foundation stone to that one.
And Mr. Bizimana, what do you think about the place and the kitchen?
Well, this place, first of all, the environment is very, very good, serene environment. When you get inside, you remember what I told you. I thought I had gone back to Dubai when I looked at the rooms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yes.
I was recently in Dubai and I saw the setup of these rooms. It's like Dubai. And I'm surprised the charges are that low. They are very low and very beautiful. I just think any person who wishes to enjoy good
Dubai in Uganda
can come to this place. And I just think, why don't we have some of our players being booked in a place like this?
We did have Ramsey Olinga, the CTO, around for a podcast last year, and he was very impressed with the rooms as well. He was like, it's a consideration. It may be a bit small for the number of players that he might want, but he said definitely the officials, it's something that's he's considering. Yeah. Okay. Because proximity and in charge of, and thinking about the rates, it was really, really convenient for him.
Yeah, and schools rugby is resuming this Sunday. I don't know what kind of feeling does this.
Dungu, for the last 2 weeks, we have been expecting guests from you to come here, and now you have a phone call during our podcast. So please, would you like to answer it while you're listening?
Yeah, let me just speak up, but it's not for many of the guests. Meanwhile, you guys can continue the podcast. Hello?
Anyway, while he's dealing with his people, I know Valentine's was yesterday, so he had to he has to solve his problems. However, Isabirye, it's been, you have watched rugby for quite a while, schools rugby in particular.
Yeah.
What ideally do you think has been, what team, besides Namiliango, what team has been your standout for which particular year and which school? And also maybe 2 or 3 players that have stood out for you in particular from those schools.
Okay. Okay, before I begin on that, when you mentioned the first under 16, they introduced it. That was actually a good thing. I think it widened the player pool.
Yeah.
But I think you might have played in the first under 16 final.
I
What
don't
do you
even
know to cause
remember that
class?
stuff, but I remember I was among the first under 16s that played at the time.
Because the year before it began, we traveled to SMAC to play S3s. We were making headway to beating those guys. All of a sudden, Form 4 start appearing on the pitch. SMAC and Namiliango, the people, you've known each other from private. At least you know someone. You see a guy who was a class above you showing up the other side. So the following year, they initiated that tournament, and if I'm not mistaken, Otukol and some guys of your class should have played in the first final. Now, for schools that stand out, I think Monsi Valence will correct me on some of those factors, but I think number one, the Budo team of the 90s will have to get a mention, the late 90s.
90s or 80s? There are the 2000.
There is that one that won back-to-back championships. There's a time we had that draw.
It is early 2000.
Early 2000. That one could be mentioned, because when you talk of teams that have schools that have managed to do back-to-back trophies, it has only been Namiliango. I think there's a time Hannah did a back-to-back, and then that Budo team. Namiliango stands out because it's under his tutelage that we did the only school to do four in a row under him, and there was a 7th title somewhere, a British High Commission and Coca-Cola Independence something.
Yeah.
So that one would stand. Was Musoko on that team?
Musoke, now you are talking about Hannah.
No. Alan, the one of
you are
the
talking
Budo,
about Alan
the one that
Musoke.
did back-to-back.
No, that was long before 2000. It was late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yes.
That should be around that one. And then I think the first school to break the monopoly of Budo, SMAC, Namiliango, that should be Alex Mubiru's Chambogo. I saw when he retired a few weeks ago, they mentioned all his accolades, and I think it would have been quite interesting if they also indicated that bit of what he did for Chambogo Rugby. It's always nice. I always see when they
It was 2003 when Chambogo won that.
Yeah, the ones that beat my brother's class.
Yes.
Yes, Edmond Tomosimen's team. Those ones. It was the final. They did a replay.
No, you are mixing things.
That is why you're here.
The replay which you are remembering is the Hannah against Namiliango. But Chambogo beat Chambogo College beat King's College Budo in the final.
In the final, but
they beat us at semi-finals. They beat Namiliango College at semis, went ahead and beat King's College Budo.
So I think that was because that's quite remarkable, because they beat Namiliango, the big one, and then they went to the final and they beat Budo. So in 2009, when SMAC beat us at the semis, we don't want to accept. So we are there at H, where like there's no way those guys will beat London College. Odonga is on that team. He'll pull one for us, but unfortunately they ended up winning the final of 2009.
Why do you say unfortunate?
But anyway, let's actually continue from that point of view there. That SMAC versus Namiliango. For those that are not familiar, what SMAC means, it is St. Mary's College, Chisubi, the school along Entebbe Road, as people say, and the school all the way from Mukono, Namiliango College, Namiliango area. This is a rivalry, this is a competition, this is a group of two groups of very, very, I should say, teams that are familiar with each other. But it's a rivalry that goes beyond rugby. It goes to academics, it goes to the girls who they go with for sosh, and also perhaps even afterwards who they ideally get as their life partners. It goes to maybe business. I've seen people mixing here and there because business you cannot have such dynamics usually, but it goes to a lot of things. Even in social status, there is that kind of competition as well between these two schools. What I'll start with you, Joseph. What emotions would that matchup on pitch evoke from you? And I don't know, just paint for us a picture of how you would feel about Smack versus Namiliang.
My daytime work, I work in the Credit Reference Bureau, Experian. So we deal with a lot of banks. Banks are our main clients. The 2019 final, after we were defeated, by the way, I was there because I was sure Smack can't beat us in a final. They had never done it. So the day after, I go to work at Absa Kampala Road.
Yeah.
And then after I'm done working on the people there, as I walk out, I had reached the door. Some guy came running, one of the Absa bankers, he's like, "You're Ngonian, and we beat you yesterday. I saw you at Legends." I think, if I remember, he might be called Henry Vanabachi. And the first thing I said is like, "This is why we were not supposed to lose to you, guys. This is the exact reason." Because I didn't see him at Legends at all. I didn't see him in my
just
work,
like when Mani loses to Arsenal the next day.
Did you see Arsenal fans walking on the streets?
Exactly. You have to bring in that.
See, that's the problem of losing. You see, even in the Ugandan Rugby League, that's the problem of losing to certain clubs. See, if a team like
what?
I'll give you a good example. To me, if there are teams I lose to, and it could slide. You get it? I could lose to Heathens, unbearable as it is, those guys may not rub it so much in my faces. You get?
But
there's those guys in Wakiso, bro. Trust me, you'll leave Legends because you won't party there. They'll still, even at 10 p.m., and I'm like, no, I'm not having any of this, I'm home.
It's good I'm not on Twitter. They like tweeting, I hear.
So, anyway, maybe to continue.
Yeah.
So, basically, the other thing I would mention is 2009, Smart beat us at the semi.
Yeah.
And then, so we are going into S6. So we are the S5s. We're looking for a social school. Now, someone started a piece of information that I think the reason we lost the trophy is we didn't go for Soch with Navi Sunsa. Now, mind you, the first year we won the trophy, 2005, the Soch wasn't with Navi Sunsa. Just because the 3 preceding years, Asabazia, the year of Walakira, and the year of Barasa, those were Soch was with Navi Sunsa. So, guys started a serious plan. We have to get Navi Sunsa for Soch.
Navi Sunsa was the secret report.
Now, when you're going to Navi Sunsa for a function, you actually get a briefing from the whole class.
Represent.
And you come back, and when you come back, guys, when Mugera Hall S6s are watching entertainment, but S5s are here. We are trying to get feedback on. Do you think we can get Soch? You have not yet started Soch discussion.
You guys, these things even continue were from your years.
And then, because Mark had Navi Sunsa, and they won the trophy. So, that kind of thing. But basically, in the setup you have to go back to the foundation. These schools were set up in a similar way. White fathers, Mill Hill fathers, they were both boys' schools. So, there is a kind of superiority when now you say Buddha was the big Anglican school. So these ones try to show that I'm the big Catholic school. I'm the big bull. Eh? So initially in those days there was in the 30s a Catholic sports day, the Major King Shield, and of course Navilango would be the big school from Mill Hill, Smack the big one from White Fathers. Then there would be in Zambia, there would be St. Henry's and so on. So it was a big deal being better than the other school. And I think the logbook also, the first time our logbook mentions how we adopt the color, at least green and yellow for sports, is I think a game we went to smack around the 30s, and then we wear the green and gold. That's how they describe it, and we won that football game 3-1, and
Colors.
hey, yeah, those colors. That's how we are. That's the first time it's mentioned. We beat those people 3-1, but the first fixture you'll have to go back to the 1910s for that football. For rugby, we started way earlier. Like Monsieur Valence mentioned, it's in the 90s that those other schools caught up, and by the time they caught up, when you go to meet SMAC, there's already that air of I need to be better, and then you're going to go and try to get Soch. There's a chance you're going to go there, and these girls will they also encourage it. They're like, why does SMAC already sent their lead? And then you feel bad a bit, or you're like, you don't want to talk bad about them, but you also have to push your case ahead. And back in that day, we used to get joy from those guys getting Gayas, because you're like, oh, they only got Gayas, that's just one Kasosh, and they'll go home and sleep. We have Namagunga home away, we have Navisuza home away. So there's that air of superiority. So, and you've seen some of these people in primary, you know people who know them if you don't know them directly. So there's always, when you meet them, you want to be better than them. Then to sound off, I think there is a time the Obis came to Namilyango and they said, I think Namagunga didn't want to give us a return source. So the Obis started a campaign at Namilyango Day talking about how Namagunga is so important because the HM was around. Like, they said something along the lines of no Namagunga, no Namilyango. But
Politics.
I think I remember that.
yes,
Wow.
you were there.
I remember.
That's how it started.
Yes.
But
No.
in terms
It
of
started
rugby,
some time back.
in terms of rugby, if SMAC wasn't existing, I don't think it would be that good. Because there's a time we beat them, I think 2006, and Brother Bukenya was there speaking, and he's like, we shall never rest until we get our hands on that trophy. So that kind of competition, it's thanks to them and Budo and those other schools, the Hannas, Chambo, Goals, Primland, and so on. It's out of their competition that Namilyango can be as good as it is.
Yeah, that's great.
He wants to say something.
Mr. Bizimana.
You see, I'm sorry to have. I think this has been boring for people who don't come from Namibia.
It is not boring at all.
But I
don't
can
worry.
tell you, SMAC plays very good rugby,
And
structured
that's coming
rugby.
from Mr. Bizimana.
That's
Budo-
my Twitter page is going to run this.
Budo plays also very good rugby, and they are, by the way, the second best in the league. They have 5 trophies.
5 years.
Namilyango has 13 league trophies. SMAC has 3 now.
Do better.
But I can tell you that rivalry, these Namilyango SMAC are 2 sister schools, of course, basing on religion. You would expect them to like each other, but a child comes to senior one. Even my son was telling me, Dad, he told me the worst school is SMAC. And this is a boy who joined just last year. So the way they preach against SMAC, I think the administration these administrations of these schools need some intervention to bridge that.
Because I also remember,
friendship.
sorry to interrupt you, you're going to continue. I remember in our S1, one of the requirements was a purely black t-shirt. So on days we would play SMAC. I remember the head prefect at the time was Senkumba Augustus Caesar.
So
They told us to always wear a black shirt. It was a day of mourning. Not mourning for ourselves, but mourning for the beating SMAC would get at Wellington. Yes.
Yeah, so even in academics, you will find a Namilyango boy who trusts he's going to make the grades. He'll put his choice. Sometimes the first choice he will put in Budo, but he will never put in SMAC.
Yeah.
And incidentally, SMAC guys put their first choice in Namilyango. Many of them.
they want to win
Many of them,
trophies.
we have actually won trophies
Even Didi came
Many
here on our
trophies.
podcast and said he
Yeah,
wanted to go to
Didi was from
Namiliango.
SMAC. He said that he put his first race in Namiliango.
Yeah, we have won so many trophies with the help of some players from SMAC, very good players whom we get at A level.
Musumba Isaac.
But you will never hear that SMAC has got a good rugby player from Namilyango, even when they have good grades that qualify them to go there. Nobody will go there.
Do you think they have a
But
path
in
to
Budo,
play?
they go. Namilyango college boys will go to Budo. You will find many of them there. So for me, okay, it is good to have that rivalry, but I also think there should be some intervention by the administration, as I said, to see people who cannot talk to each other, yet they are from two sister Catholic schools. But again, I think sometimes it is health also, because I see outside the school,
Oh yeah.
they are very good friends.
Look at Kasito and Munyani.
Outside school, they are
Like
very
twins.
good friends. Even leave alone, even the rugby players, even others, you will
just,
find they are okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it can remain. But for me, I thought about it. I said, why should the worst, the most smelly toilet in Namilyango is called SMAC?
I think
It's Biro Billington.
we have cut that out.
Okay. So there is another one, second to it, called Hana. But Hana, it was also out of envy because Hana had become another second bull in the crown.
Shout outs, give that man his flowers. The man in
I'm telling
France.
you, you were talking about memorable games in school rugby. You were talking about which school do you feel Hana gave Namilyango a bloody nose. During those days of Wokolat, Philip Wokolat, Bijiki,
Ronnie Musoke.
Magom, of course, when he was still in Oliver Hana. That was a team that Namilyango used to dread. It used to send shivers whenever it would step on pitch, especially when it was a sevens game. You would see Namilyango, even fans, some of them would not even come to watch because they knew Hana was going to win. But whenever we would beat Hana, I remember there was a commissioners, British High Commissioners trophy we won. We beat Hana, we beat SMAC. The way the students were excited, beating Hana was something. But of course, there has always been sweeter than anything beating SMAC. The fans want to beat SMAC. I have told you, even in senior one, they know we must beat SMAC. I don't know who preaches that gospel to the boys, but I can tell you, those players Hana has produced have gone miles. And
Yes.
some people always credit, it is good to credit clubs, Chadondo, Regent, but many times they forget that all these players pass through schools. No one gives us credit. In fact, vets have always criticized. I saw the other day, they were criticizing schools. And some of them, it is lack of information. It is here where I want to make it categorically clear that schools play everywhere, regionally. But many people think rugby is only here in Kampala. You were talking of how rugby has evolved. We have created avenues for regions to play. USRA, Uganda Schools Rugby Association, has a representative in every region. We have a representative in Eastern, we have a representative in Northern, we have a representative in Central, we have a representative in Western Uganda. All those regions, now those representatives are charged with organizing competition at that regional level.
Yeah.
That is why you see annually when there are nationals, every region has to send some teams. But I saw people questioning, are there competitions in Eastern? How does the Kira College Boutique come to nationals when they have not been competing?
I saw them at the East Africa Games.
They have been there. In Mbale, they have been there. In Northern, if you look at the Samuel Rebecca, you see Dr. Bote, you see Lango College, we have involved them. They have all played. But some people don't get to know even what is happening in schools rugby. And I would wish to appeal actually to everybody who loves rugby. You need to love schools rugby.
Need to watch schools rugby.
You need to watch schools rugby everywhere. The league is starting this Sunday. I want to appeal to all rugby loving fans to come and start watch every Sunday until I think around April. There will be rugby, schools rugby at 4 venues. So this is the time to, and I don't like it when people start criticizing. Yet we are here. Why don't they give a call and ask me what is taking place, so that I answer before you start critiquing every time.
Yes. I always have this question. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going beyond where we are supposed to talk about, but Mr. Bizimana, and I'll also ask you, Isabirye. God is giving us life, and I know you are still, and you are energetic. What's your dream? What do you want to live, to witness in the future of schools rugby?
Well, I want to see schools rugby having very strong competition. Although I have said their competitions regionally, they are not so strong. When we go for nationals, it is clear that the schools best here will emerge winners to represent the country in the East African Games. We have never had one challenging and beating Kampala school. It is very rare to find such. It is entirely which normally tries to come in, bubbles here and there, but again, what I want now to see, I want to see every region having a league of its own as strong as the one we have in the Premier League here in Central.
Yeah.
And by the way, to educate people who don't know much about schools rugby, we have 2 categories. We have the Premier Division and the Second Division. The Premier Division is all inclusive. You can join the Premier Division from even these other regions I have mentioned, as long as you merit, as long as you can go through the right channels. Because this is what happens. We normally have Super 8. The Super 8 are chosen. Normally there is a team that is relegated to Second Division, and then there is a team that is supposed to be promoted. Unfortunately, for the past about 4 years, we have not promoted teams. Why? When Hana pulled out, Kororo also pulled out, the likes of Chambogo did not want to play again because of some politics. Some people, when they take over as patrons, they think they are the owners of the game. Especially when head teachers don't want to spend money. When there is no serious rugby patron, they just forget. So what happened when I come back to why we have not promoted? You must have seen that we are playing with 6 teams lately. We have basically had competitions regionally and ready to promote teams. Because Kana and Nikororo dropped out at the same time, we needed to promote 2 at a go this time. So there were competitions, and we had selected 4 teams, each from each region, to come and meet at a central place, and they play. Then we take the finalists, 2 finalists, the winner and the loser in the final. We promote them. Unfortunately, the union would always budget and say, we are going to do it this year. They are going to play. When it reaches time of that tournament of qualification, playoffs, the union says even the national team is hard up. We cannot get money. This year it happens. They promise next year it will happen. Mr.
Same
Chairman.
promises, not happening.
The next year it doesn't happen. Meanwhile, the public is saying, Mr. Bizimana, why is you see rugby is going down? We have only 6 teams every time. And yet even the president would tell you, you cannot, because at one time I said we can pick a school like Ginger SS. We can pick a team which we think is strong like Entebbe SS, which have been playing. Then they would tell you, what are you going to tell the other schools? Which criteria have used to promote them? So I wanted to respect the union's decision, and I would just remain with 6 until at such a time comes when they will say they have money to have those playoffs. Otherwise, the schools are always ready from
And it
regions
comes back to
come.
Yusra to look unserious.
Yeah, they will always blame us, but I'm telling you.
But what would you blame for the reason of schools pulling out? Is it because of the funding in the school, or it's because of the times changing and the focus of the school perhaps? What do you think about it?
You will make me take another day for this explanation. A school like Kororo SS, they have been, they were using mercenaries. I had to go to school even to establish whether certain players were students at the school. The headmaster himself, of course, doesn't know. It is the coach and the patron. The headmaster called the patron, can you call me these players? The patron never came back.
Up to now. Like he did not show up when they
He
called.
did not show up.
He
Because
left to pick the players and didn't come
Udo
back.
had petitioned. I went there. I don't want to mention the player because now the player since left is enjoying his rugby at club. I don't want to mention his name now. But the player was playing for Ginger and he was playing for Koro at the same time. And when they called to find out whether he was a student, he had never stepped in the school. The twins, they are twins who have been playing. One twin was born in 1998, another was born in 2000.
But then those are not true.
And one participated in a food eating competition.
Those twins, also the
What was that
headmaster
we eat?
said these twins are not my students.
Wow.
So when the patron realized now that his position was in danger, he stopped those players from participating. And they did not have now enough team.
No.
So they pulled out. Most of those players, they decided to go and play for Kenyan schools.
Hey.
We met them in East African Games in Tanzania in 2019. They were
Mr. Bizimana,
now that is Kororo.
Hannah?
For Hannah changed its status. Then they were following the Ugandan curriculum. Then they started following Cambridge. And now when it became, remember it was called the Hannah Mixed at first.
Yeah.
Now it is Hannah International. When it became Hannah International, they started charging different tuition, very high, very expensive. And many people, players who would be given bursary, they were no longer being given bursary. Of late, I'm happy that Hannah, I think maybe they have changed the administration. Hannah has come back on board and they are waiting. They are about to get back to playing 15s. They are already playing 7s. So this year I'm happy. I have seen and they have incorporated Entebbe SS and Nadia St. Peter's. So I think now they are full, back to 8. But the challenges those schools, some of them get, is that you can find Entebbe SS playing one game, the next game they don't come. Then they started disorganizing the
around
league.
COVID time. You remember?
Last year?
Last year we didn't have a league. We had only 3 schools because we had to go for nationals. We used this league to play as qualifiers. Actually, all the 3 schools which played each other, Namyango, Budo, and the Makerere College. They all qualified.
Isabirye, I asked you a question. Where do you want to see? What do you want to live to witness?
Okay. Number one, I'm glad I'm seeing the safety issue addressed. Monsieur Valence mentioned that these days there is an ambulance packed at schools games. Because basically, schools games feed the clubs. And for schools to have rugby, trust is an important issue. And for parents, once safety is addressed, they can be more trustworthy about letting their children play rugby. Because the age grade rugby, that thing of bringing in under 17 and under 15, you'd find that an S1 gains more confidence playing rugby. That was a good thing. It expanded the pool. But now, addressing the safety, I'm glad we are already doing that because it will help widen the pool. Then there's also mention about other schools playing rugby. There are times I read about Namilyango's performances in East Africa games, and then you see there is, let's say, Butiki playing sevens or something. It's always encouraging because the game needs to go beyond these traditional schools, the SMAC, the Budos, and so on. It would be good if Hannah returns on board. What they initially did, those initial scholarships to the Phillips, was it Ronnie Musoke and the like?
Yeah.
Those ones were quite encouraging. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't he like one of the most popular players of this generation, if not the most popular?
Philip.
Philip.
Many even consider him the GOAT.
Yeah. So it's quite telling that Philip is considered the GOAT, and he didn't play for Namilyango. He didn't play for Budo. He didn't play for Smart. I could add Chambogo. But he won the schools league. He won a sevens trophy at school level. He went played East Africa games and
East
won.
Africa, he won.
He won East Africa. And people look up to him. So it always gives hope to these other people, these other schools, that you could have a structure. You could be organized and take the game to the likes of Namilyango. You could be competitive. I would always like Namilyango to win, but if we are losing and the competition is
It's
fair,
really commendable.
and it's encouraging other schools to be like, by the one day we could rise up and meet those guys and thump them. It's me. I would actually
Live
like
for
to see
that.
that.
Yeah.
So I hope what Monsieur Valence you're doing is good. I like this new regional structuring of having. Even the union has done it, the regional leagues. A lot more clubs have cropped up. And some of them have gotten the ideas from schools. There's, the last bit I'll mention, there's a time I was home, in my parents' home, Ginger. My parents' home, if you're heading towards Ziganga, Aredo knows it properly. When he's going to Toro, he always calls, "Are you home?" So around Bugembe is where you branch off. So then you continue the old road that goes to Kakirak and continue to Muiri and so on. But there's a school there called Lakeview. Incidentally, it's also a Catholic founded school. I saw a gentleman in my neighborhood walking around with a rugby ball and asked him, "Are you playing for Hippos?" He's like, "No." And he mentioned a different club. But I wish I could remember the name of the club.
Crocs?
He's like, not Crocs. He said it's a newly formed club within the Bugembe area, a newly formed rugby club. And he said they are partnering with that school, Holy Cross Lakeview, and it's like he was from training the students of Holy Cross Lakeview in rugby. And to me, that is the kind of thing we want to be seeing, where other schools outside the central region are taking up this game. The club game can only grow when the school game is growing.
Yeah. Before I ask Ruben to say something, for me, my major focus would be on brands tapping into schools rugby. I'll tell you for sure. Ruben's shirt is a replica for the Namilyango rugby jersey under 20. It has Trinity apparel. This jersey is made in the US by the Namilyango OBs. And in this league starting on Sunday, you will most definitely see some brands appearing on top of schools' rugby replicas. This gives you good visibility. I promise you, many people love schools rugby. And if brands can, we're talking of Namilyango now has Jibu, the Jibu family. They're going to be supplying liters of water to the anchors and as their hydration partner. Jessa is with King's College Budo, and they even have a jersey.
On that note, I'll be drinking more Jibu, less Jessa.
Yes. So Jessa is going to be at the front of the King's College Budo jersey, the Lions. So brands, if you are really wise, tap into the schools rugby space.
Yeah, so as we start to really go towards the end of this very, very insightful podcast, I'd just like to ask Mr. Bizimana, you talked about people not being aware of schools rugby, what's happening around schools rugby, but now I want us to play our part as the podcast in creating that awareness. Yes, how is it, paint for us a picture of how the 2023 season is going to be, not just the league that's about to start this Sunday, but all through the whole calendar year. How is schools rugby going to be structured so that people can be fully aware of what's going to happen?
By the way,
they should know.
I want to tell you that I'm no longer the chairman of schools.
What?
Yeah, but
but I know what is going on. We had elections towards the end of the year because my term came to an end. My 2 terms came to an end, and I didn't want us to amend the constitution.
It was not signed
in some circles. So I will talk as now someone because now I'm an advisor in schools rugby. I know the calendar is like this. Starting with Sunday, which is February, we are going to have 4 games. 4 games being played at 4 venues. Not very sure of the fixtures, but what I know Namdiang is going to play in TBSS. I know maybe I can mention the schools that are in the league.
Yeah, that's fine.
We have Namdiango, we have St. Mary's College Subi, we have King's College Budo, we have the fixtures now come here. Namdiango College is going to play Entebbe Parents at Namdiango. We have London College hosting St. Mary's College Subi. We have King's College Budo versing St. Peter's Naria in Budo. And the Makerere College will host Light Academy at the graveyard. So and this is going to happen every weekend on Sunday. The games normally start at 11 with the under 15, then followed by the under 17, and lastly with the under 20. So people should try to catch up with
old boys, well-wishers.
You come and support the players. I didn't mention, by the way, that it is in my regime also that we created a post for girls rugby. We have a representative. We have a representative for girls rugby, and although there is not much action for girls rugby in Central Region, especially here Kampala, we have schools, girls schools playing rugby in Entebbe. We have girls schools playing rugby in Eastern Uganda, Northern Uganda, and even Western Uganda. So to me, it was a plus that we recognized women's rugby and someone directly in charge of this. Yeah. So I call upon every stakeholder, every well-wisher to start watching schools rugby. When it comes to second, did you talk about the calendar? Did you want me to give you the calendar of the whole house?
Yeah, the whole year, just the outline.
Yes, outline. In the second term, there will be before second term. At the end of this term, there will be nationals. competition is under USSA, that is Uganda Secondary School Sports Association, which is the Ministry of Education. The union doesn't have much control over it. The organizers are not union. It is the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
So it will be in the schools, when schools close, that will be, I think, early May. Immediately, if they close Friday, Saturday, schools report at venues to play. Then after that competition, that will be that competition is meant to be qualifiers for East African Games. The winners of that is Boro Games 1. Of course, there are Boro Games 2 in second term, along the term, for sevens. Now I'm talking about rugby. There are other games, of course. Rugby in second term, there will be sevens, also organized by USSA. But we have also our league organized by USRA, sevens in second term. Just the second weekend of the term, of second term, we normally start school sevens. It is open to all schools. It is open. Then after that, of course, in the holidays at the end of second term, we go for FIASA Games. That is Federation of East African Secondary School Games, whereby the winners of now these USA Games are the ones who represent the country at that level in East Africa. Then the final competition is normally the Independence Cup.
Yeah.
The Independence Cup is also open to everybody. Sometimes we used to even invite Kenyans, but resources have always limited us. Because Kenyans will want to come, they always wish to come, but sometimes you cannot accommodate them, you can't feed them, you can't meet their transport. So we try to give it to the schools around locally, but also the limitations are that schools are entering final exams for UNEB. So that competition is majorly played by senior fives and senior threes. But there are some schools who want to win by hook or crook, even when the exams are on the doorway. Senior 6, senior 4, you will see them coming to play in that competition. But it is meant to prepare players for the next season generally.
Yeah, that has always been one of the purposes of the Independence Cup, I think, to give the incoming teams a chance. But just in 1 minute before I hand over to Dungu for the trivia questions, there is this whole conversation about, as you have clarified, that now what used to be the under-19 or the senior high school teams is now under-20.
Yes.
But there is this conversation about under-20s who are playing for clubs or who are affiliated with clubs not being able to partake for their high schools. What's the clarity or the dynamic around that? Because they meet the criteria when it comes to age.
Yes. Thank you for this question. In fact, it would be bad to go without talking about this. It is something that has always cropped up in schools rugby, and some people hate me or hate USRA for that matter, because I have been very strict. And those who love rugby and those who follow rugby, schools rugby very well, some of them have given me thumbs up. They have credited me for being very strict with age grade, because many people want to play schools rugby. But some of them are overage. And their pass slips will show that they have the right age. But sometimes you have players whom you know very well that this one was studying with this one and this one is this age. How come this one is this age? So when you try to go and find out, I can tell you that last year he went as far as UNEP and found out very many concocted pass slips. A person says he's born in 2002 because he wants to play for the school that year. Now he puts there 2005, so that he's in senior 4. He wants to play in senior 5, wants to play in senior 6, and he can even play another year if he repeated, because he will still be eligible to play. So some schools have been doing that, and it is very wrong. But the most controversial thing which you wanted to know about is, why don't we allow players featuring for premier clubs to play for their schools? Well, even when they are of the right age, it is clear in our constitution, it is clear in the manual, with consultation with the union at that time when I came in my position, we agreed that if a player wants to play for the school, then he should not feature for his club, especially because we were a bit lenient. We said they can feature for second division clubs, reserve clubs. This Central League, you can feature. They can play for those clubs. But Premier League side, a player who has reached that level and the club gives him that chance to play, he's above school rugby. We are not developing him anymore. He has developed and feels he can play with big boys. And therefore, for us, we want him to give chance, to pave way for all the other players who are now there watching, who are always on bench because he's playing. Yet we are actually not adding any value to him. So we want to give chance to
Isabirye
other
looks like he has a
people.
question.
Yes.
No. I think I like that fact that you've mentioned the role is to develop the player. That one is actually welcome. So it justifies the whole argument. If a person has already represented a club at senior level, they should not feature for. Maybe what I wanted to point out, there is something you mentioned about the girls' rugby. I had taken note of it here because we're talking a lot about schools, boys. Yeah. We have an opportunity. When it comes to women's sports, not many, at national level, not many countries do invest. So I don't know what our ranking is, but I don't think it's as low as the men's rugby team is ranked. So there is a need to push for investment for women's sports, as long as you push invest, because they are already there willing to commit. So what you're doing at that level could push attention and focus and also interest in people taking it up or encouraging young girls to do it. And then why you don't have schools in Central? Is there any school in Central that has signed up?
Well, girls, as I told you, of course, when we talk Central, I hope you are not talking about Kampala. There are schools in Entebbe, which is also Central.
Oh, it's also Central.
But it is surprising that schools around Rugogo, where rugby is played, they are not taking part in schools rugby. But we have always encouraged schools like King's College Budo, which is mixed. A school like Hana mixed, it is Hana International, it is mixed. Schools like Kororo SS, Chambogo. These schools, if the patrons were, these days it is hard to get passionate patrons like I was with Mr. Mutebi when we were in charge. They could make sure they develop even girls' teams. Every time their boys' team is training, the girls should be training with them because it is simple. The girls always come to, especially I always see the girls coming in big numbers to cheer their team. Makere College, there is a time they brought, I think, about 10 buses. Yeah. I could see girls very passionate, making a lot of noise. Those girls can be interested in playing rugby.
Or even something in rugby.
But it all comes to the
management,
the
courses, referee courses.
It starts with the school. Because if the patron can interest the administration and say the girls also play rugby, like I had done. I had started rugby at Nabisunsa. I had started rugby at Nabisunsa. Unfortunately, it was not sustainable because the school was not supporting it. I had just joined Nabisunsa from a boys' school, and the head teacher told me, since you are the president Uganda Schools Rugby, I really don't want to frustrate you. Meaning she was doing it to favor me. I don't want to frustrate you. You can, I have allowed, you can continue with the girls. You do what you want, but please don't ask for support from the school. We don't have money for that yet. Until the girls get broken, their limbs are going to get broken. I tried to show her even the pictures of national team, Uganda national team for ladies playing. I had prepared myself when I went to meet her. Said, hey, you mean this is from Uganda? Said, okay, we have given her, go ahead. So by the time I said, okay, let me start, somewhere I know she will support me. Unfortunately, she got another appointment in the Electoral Commission, and she went. Now it needed convincing the new head teacher. Again. But the girls were very passionate, they were willing. So what they did, we trained for about 3 months, for a whole term. The girls said, sir, if the school is not sponsoring us, we are going to sponsor ourselves. They started paying money. They would pay 5,000 every week, every girl. And I got about 120, but they kept on dropping off because of money. Yeah. So every week I would bring in 2 referees, lady referees. I remember I would bring in Sauda, Rosenberg, Nachicho. There was a certain Nachicho. Even a man I brought one time, Onen, when he was still a ref. And this Wotimba, they came. They trained the girls until when the money ran out. Because I would give, they would come 2 referees each day, and they would come twice a week. Each ref would just give transport. They were okay. They said, no, we are just developing. Let's come. After all, we are not from very far. So we would give them 20,000 each ref. So in a day, we would give 40,000. So twice a week, that would mean 80. A month, you know what it means. By the time the term ended, the girls were no longer paying. Too much, so it was not sustainable. Because at that time I used to sit on the URU Exco, I told them, guys, we have started with girls, but now we don't have funds. Can't the union really step in and help us and to develop? They said, when funds are willing, we shall come on board. We shall. Actually, they promised, we are going to do it. But it has failed to take off. And I'm still there. I can still do it if they came. So we are thinking.
Trivia time?
Yeah, it is really trivia time. Just that it seems like every aspect there is a challenge of there is no money. So where exactly there is the money? But that's a conversation
brands.
for another
I've
day.
told brands to tap into schools rugby.
Dungu, let us get into the trivia as we close this
Trivia.
up.
The trivia I have is for Mr. Bizimana. Unfortunately, I don't. Maybe you can, as I get trivia, you can get 3 questions for that gent.
Trivia. Oh.
Yeah, Mr. Bizimana.
Yes,
the ground rules, housekeeping rules are so simple. You'll give me an answer in the shortest time possible.
How long?
You're a very sharp man.
Seconds.
I can't.
Quick answer.
Quick thinker. I mean, you told me, so I respect and I know you'll. Yeah. So, number 1, what was your nickname as the patron of rugby in Namiliango?
I don't know. You are the ones who know.
All right.
Let me tell you.
I'll tell him off the podcast. Best 5 players you ever saw for your tenure as patron in high school?
All schools?
Namiliango, then across. Best 5.
Well, there was Anguyo. He had Timo.
Modola.
Yeah. No, he was not under me, but he was one of those. Chimono.
3.
Chishato was great.
Yeah.
And I think there was I have forgotten this guy with the Warakiras. Warakira. I meant Warakira.
Emmanuel Warakira.
Yes, please.
So then other schools across.
Other schools, when you go to SMAC, there was this gentleman, they played the Barasas and Barasas beat
Which
them.
Barassa? The senior, the junior?
The Barasa senior.
Rubega.
Rubega. Felix Rubega with the Kabazi. Then they got another one after them, someone whom they used to call Sony.
Sony, that was Rubega's
Rubega's
brother.
kid brother. Actually,
Kasozi.
he's the one that won the 2009.
The first trophy
Yeah.
SMAC got.
Those guys were. So then in Budo, there were these guys. There is the Eric Butime. There is this guy who is now the chairman, Pirates. What is his name?
Chanowira.
Chano. Yeah. Those are guys. Of course, Etiquette played for both the Buda and the Namilyango. So,
Okay. Then other schools, notably.
Other schools and the most outstanding have been Philip Kolach, has been Magom, was my captain at Namilyango, but even when he was at, we managed to you see, you to come from Hana and you join in Namilyango, you must have been extraordinary. So Magom had even contacted me in Senior 2. He brought his report. I still have it. He wanted to join in Senior 2, but Namilyango does not admit
that
in
level.
the middle of the year,
Yeah.
apart from Senior 1 and Senior 5.
Yes.
So I told him, work hard, come at Senior 5. And he did well.
Wow. Magomo. Much deserved, King. Yes. Then if it weren't rugby, what sport would it be?
As I told you, I joined rugby because I was a very soccer fanatic.
Yes. And yeah, I know your little son has a name for the greatest football player. Guys, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. The greatest football player ever. Happiest moment or moments as rugby patron in Namilyango?
The happiest moment was, of course, that time when we won the first trophy as in church in 2005. But the most the time I remember when I was super excited when I knew we had lost was that year of the Barasas.
Yes.
The Barasas team was not as good as the SMAC team. But in the end, the way the late Katongole,
December.
the late Katongole scored a try, and then Lawrence Wakabi.
Oh my Lord!
When they scored the try, it was tears for, including
that was when,
my friend
our
Mutebi.
dynasty
He
was born
cried
as
on
Namilyango.
the pitch because they had really put in a lot. The team was well drilled. They gave a brand new. I have videos for all those games. I have them in my gallery.
Really?
Yes. So I watch them and I say, so that was my happiest moment.
Do you want to talk about Lawrence Wakabi as a player?
Lawrence Wakabi, commonly known as a sailor, he was really a sailor. Yeah. The guy was pacey. He was the all-round, every game, football, just like his elder brother,
100 meters
Simon.
as well.
100 meters, every game, and he was games captain. So
Okay. Worst rugby moment or moments?
worst rugby moment is when we lost to SMAC in the semis,
2009.
2009.
Oh, yeah.
The other time, the worst was in Nakuru when we were supposed to win our first East African
2010.
trophy, 2010.
But
The Chimonos, yeah.
dropped ball.
Even the Kenyans had agreed that this team,
Yeah.
nobody could beat them. But Chimono was really on fire, even better than he was for club when he had just joined. He was so good. And the Kenyan referee, he said, and they were talking, so if you give a yellow card to that guy, then you can win. We just needed to win that game and come with a trophy. It was all round.
Many people don't understand Chimono right now, but just in 30 seconds, if you can just paint a picture of the kind of player Chimono was growing and right now.
You're finishing up your trivia time. After that, I'm taking it away.
Okay.
Chimono was really a very stout guy, very strong, very quick. Before he got injured, he was too fast and very good. Once he has seen the line, he would score. He could hit any size of player and go and score.
Yeah.
And very disciplined at that. So when they gave Chimono that yellow card, that is it. They scored a try, which made, I think we lost 11-9, something, 11-9.
Who, in your tenure as rugby patron across the years, who has been or who have been your most disciplined kind of players? You can name them?
Yeah. Anguyo was exemplary. Well, he was exceptional. The guy, even when the coach was not there, he would lead the team and conduct training when he was the captain.
Yeah.
And Shato was equally disciplined. Those were...
Yes. And lastly, or second lastly, if this counts, what's your famous quote in life, or how do you want to be remembered in life?
Well, I want to be remembered as a person who was neutral, even when I had very strong attachment for Namilyango. Like today, you have been talking about Namilyango with a passion, but I want to assure people that when I was chairman, there is no one moment when I could side with Namilyango not on principle. I made sure people used to think I used to favor Namilyango, but I know in my heart, and God knows, that whatever I was doing it on principle. And that is what I want people to remember me for. Some people later got used to me and they said, I think this man is really neutral.
Yeah.
Your famous quote? The quote, I don't know which quote.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bizimana.
Welcome.
Always a pleasure. Yeah,
Ruben,
thank you for hosting.
Let us peruse through these. Best and worst schools rugby moment for you?
Without a doubt, the worst schools moment would have to be the 2010 final where we lost to Budo. I think themselves, when you're Namilyango, when you go into any season, you go in as favorites. Themselves, they knew we were the favorites to win. There was hunger from the previous year after we were knocked out by SMAC. I believe we had that team. I think we had that team. Both the guys in Form 6, the Kishatos. Actually, the Kishatos were just in Form 4, but they had the hunger. But it was actually a shocker to me. And coincidentally, one of us had made a promise to Muguluma in one of the meetings we had as A-levels. We are going to bring back that trophy. And we didn't. So that
was Chimono who got broken. That was the problem.
The
captain.
He got injured, and Bambi, when he got injured, I think I had not watched that training. But when I went to the canteen, one of the Form 4s came to me and was like, "Is it true that Chimono is injured?" And you could see it in his face that we are worried about it. So to me, that's the worst moment. The best moment probably that's the 7th circuit at Namilyango in 2007 when the anchors wore the black jersey that Mr.
He has
Muguluma
to tell us a story about that old black jersey at the end.
That one was like Namilyango at its finest. I think we played SMAC in one of the I think it was quarterfinals, and the way those of Kamanyire, Walakira, Musumba were playing, they're like, we have to humiliate SMAC. So whenever they would score a try, they would not. I don't think they were converting. Come back to the line, wait for the ball, attack again. They were that good, that team. So to me, that was the finest moment.
Preferred girls' school. Funks and Sosh.
You can't ask a 31-year-old man that question.
You have those memories.
Professionally, you meet these people all the time. you meet them in your work life.
That's compromising,
It's
right?
compromising. They're helping you at work. There's you're dating one of
I
them.
will allow
So
you to plead the fifth on that one.
please leave me.
Can I answer it quickly?
No, you cannot. If not Pops, what team would you support?
I believe in home team. I'm a ginger person. I would support Hippos. I used to check on Nile results, and then they disappeared. But I'm glad Hippos came up, so it would be Hippos.
Okay. Favorite rugby ground to be at?
Favorite rugby ground to be at? It's the Ramiliango ground. It's where I
Yeah.
it's where
Round of applause, guys.
It's where I got the interest of the game from. I've played there quite a few times. Ishato and these people used to hit me in the Chaplain's Cup. It was quite hard guys. So that's my favorite ground. I used to have a thing where I always wanted to watch the first Namiliango home game of the season. I'll try to do it this weekend.
Sunday. Ruben, should we give Mr. Bizimana a chance to say bye-bye to everyone?
Yeah, we'll I think give both of them a chance to say their parting shots just in about a few seconds. Then we can close. This is on record our longest podcast.
Really?
Yes.
So we have talked a lot.
Not that, but it has been very insightful. But we usually have podcasts that aren't this long.
Okay.
Mm.
So I must say thank you very much for being patient with us. For the people, some of us who are teachers, we talk too much, I know. But I think it was worthwhile to be here. I'd always longed for this moment. I even used to think, even this podcast, even when you had another podcast somewhere, I used to wonder whether people value schools rugby. They are asking other people, they don't call me. Now this is the moment. I was happy that you have called me. And please, if there are any other things to clarify about, never hesitate to call me again, or you can give me a phone call. I really appreciate. Now I want to call everybody on Sunday to step up on those different venues I have mentioned. Go and cheer schools, your school where you are attached. Want to call also union members to always go and watch these games. And sport talent, the sevens coach, the 15s coaches, please go there and see. At a time when we have all those competitions, each coach should really be there. And not only coaches, everybody who loves rugby. From now, I say thank you and bye to everybody.
Yeah, Isa.
Thank you for having me. I think the reason why I was invited is because sometimes when I listen to the podcasts, I give Edwin insights that do this, get a fact-checking chap, do something of the sort. So I think it's like to solve all these issues, put that guy there. So it was nice coming here to discuss schools rugby. Nice to meet Monsieur Valence after a long time.
Good.
And I think, like he said, let's go out there and watch these games on Sunday. It's good for the growth of the game. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's been a great conversation. We are really honored to have Mr. Bizimana Valence here because we have all gone through his hands and his guidance in one way or the other. And Issa, we always appreciate you following and giving your feedback about the podcast. And as we always tell the people out there watching us that please always give us feedback whenever you can. We appreciate all those that comment on our YouTube, all those that engage with us on social media, and we shall always try to give you guys a platform to express yourselves, to talk rugby, because rugby is not only for the people on the pitch, but it's for you guys as well that spare the time to watch on TV, that spare the time to go to each particular rugby ground. As we always say, connect with us, subscribe and follow. Thank you for watching this particular episode of the Fat Cats Rugby Podcast. See you next week.
Bye.
This is the part where we hear your music. Thank you for listening.